Hello lovies, welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new, I'm Gina, aka Gina Louise. Today we're going to take a plain sweatshirt, this sweatshirt right here, and we're going to make it into something really pretty. The first thing I'm doing is I'm cutting the sleeves off. I need to leave a little bit of that sleeve to attach my pretty poofy sleeve I want to add. So I am just measuring 2 inches underneath the armpit area there, and I'm just cutting it on an angle going up. Obviously I will be doing that with both sleeves, and then I'm going to cut the band off the bottom and start with a clean slate. Now I'm cutting off the collar area and I'm giving it a V-neck. These are some of the fabrics I considered using. I ended up not using this floral one, but I am using it on another project I'm working on. I embellished the front with some of those fabrics. I took some of the crochet pieces, as you can see the 3 pieces there. I took this blush color rose off of another fabric I have, and I'm just pinning it to this cream color cotton I have to give it a little bit of backing, so that when I sew it on the front to the sweatshirt, it's going to really pop. I'm sliding my acrylic ruler in between the front and back so that when I pin my little design here, I do not pin the front and back together. After I pin it, I'm going to bring it over to my sewing machine. I use a zigzag. Whenever I'm sewing crochet, I always use a zigzag. I feel like it catches it better and pins more of it down so it doesn't get wobbly. Now it's all pinned down. I'm going to go bring it to the sewing machine and sew it on. Here it is, sew it on. I think it looks cute. This is a cotton thrifted sheet, and it's in this muted like oatmeal color, which I absolutely love. For those of you who have been following me for a while and like my clothing line, you know that I do collections in all oatmeal, very shabby chic and lacy, and I thought this would be perfect. So I am also using this top that is so small it does not fit me. It might have fit me 2 years ago, but doesn't now. So, and it's got this really cool lace here. So I thought if I cut pieces of this lace, these pieces in between here, that I could make my own little border on and trim the neckline with it. So that's what I'm cutting these strips for. I'm cutting some strips from the front part of this, some strips from the back part, with keeping in mind that I want a border on the neckline of the sweatshirt, almost like a bias tape, but instead a pretty decorative trim. And here is what I did with it. I trimmed the neckline, I pinned it, well, I clipped it, and then I took it over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew it in place. Now I'm cutting up both sides on the seam 6 inches. I want to keep the sides open to give it more of a relaxed fit and not so tight.
So they called up the neighbors to tell them the news. A young baby child that the world cannot abuse. I cried and I cried when they called it a ruse.
So I have these random lace seams that I save for projects. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece here, put a piece on the other side, and I'm going to take it to my machine and just zigzag that. I shouldn't be doing this on a on a towel, but I was ironing it. Okay, so let's just, what is going on here? I ended up getting fabric glue on some of my pins. Although, does this feel like one? Doesn't feel like one, but I ended up getting fabric glue on some of them, and that is just the death of a pin unless you get it off. Okay, there we go. Now, go right up here. That is my dog you hear in the background, who is going to get his nails clipped today. So you don't hear the tit-tit-tit-tit-tit all over as he's running around me. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Now I'm just going to zigzag that on. So here's how it looks with the trim that I made from a seam, and I just love it. I think it looks great. This side was just a little wider than the other side, so I decided to give the lace a little bit of a trim, and I just followed along the side of the stitching. Now I'm taking a piece of lace that I have, and I am cutting 4-inch wide strips because I am making a band on the bottom of the sweatshirt. So I just keep cutting 4-inch wide pieces and piling them up, and then when I'm done I'm going to sew them all together so I have a long enough piece to do the band. I made as many strips as I could from that maxi skirt. And I am now going to cut them so that they're 90-degree angles at these sides, you know, so they're straight up. This one's a little slanted, so I'm folding them in half, putting them up on my cutting board, up on the straight line, matching it up to the line, and then I am cutting it nice and straight. I am laying my heavy scissors on one end so it doesn't move on me. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just straightening them all out.
I was baptized with water the day it happened. Now I'm leaving my chains all behind. So they called up the neighbors to tell them the news. A young baby child that the world can abuse. I cried and I cried when they called it a ruse. Now I'm leaving my chains all behind. I had realized the night before the day I turned 7 that even if acting nice could get you to heaven, the earth that you live in will treat you like hell. So I'm leaving my chains all behind.
Here are all the pieces I cut from that long maxi skirt. Okay, so here was my original plan. I almost changed it and then I went back to the original. So I sewed all those pieces of lace together and then I folded it in half and I zigzagged all the way down, and I'm going to add the piece here on the front. And I already pinned the one on the back. I got one on the back. What I will do is I will grab this and I will poke it in, poke it in, poke it in, poke it in. Okay, and I will run a stitch down here so that I have a seam on each end. I will do the same thing on this end. I will sew that on, and I am going to make a big pretty bow, way prettier than this, but this was just for me to get an idea. And before I make the bow, I will sew on this side as well on the ribbon. Then I'm going to add the bow here, and I'm going to have a big long draping bow coming down the top. So that's what I decided on. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to sew on these pieces now. So I've decided I'm going to add the lace piece under the sweatshirt like this, and I am going to zigzag along that edge, both the front and the back, and then I am going to add my bow hanging. So the bow, I already sewed both sides, both of them are sewed. Normally I buy a lot of lace curtains when I go to a thrift store, and normally where the rod goes, that piece on top, I cut those off. I have a whole stash full of them. I use them all the time for projects, and they would look just like this when you cut it off. It would look like this, but it was all in my storage. I didn't feel like going to it today, so I used what I had in my stash at home, and I had this lace, so I decided to make one. If you want to do this and you thrift a curtain, just cut off the top where the top pocket where the rod goes in, and you can make this lickety split. I make a lot of these bows from them, and I do hang them off of tops of mine, and I have them draped down. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to sew those pieces on, put the bow on, and show you what I have. The bow is just pinned on. For now, I actually hand sew it on later on. I didn't want it to get in the way while I was sewing the sleeves, so I didn't sew it yet. Now it's time to get your sleeve measurement, and what you're going to do is you're going to put on the shirt and you're going to measure from where it ends to where you would like it to end on your arm, your wrist, 3/4, all the way down to your hand, whatever you like. So mine measured 8 inches, but that's only one side of it. So 8 and 8, that would be the whole sleeve, is 16 inches, and then you want to double that, so you're going to times it by 2, which is 32 inches. Plus, you're going to do 2.5, so that would be 8 more inches, would be half of the 16, so it would be a total of 40 inches. So that is where I got that number from. So the sleeve is 40 inches around the top and 13 inches long. And add 1 inch for the seam allowance, because you will need at least a half an inch on the top of that sleeve by the shoulder and by the wrist. Okay, I'm just showing you the measurements here. I cut my sleeves and we're going to attach them now to the sweatshirt. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to fold them right sides together and sew them closed so that we have a tube. I recommend sewing a zigzag stitch all along the top and the bottom, or if you have a serger, you could serge it. I just did it with a zigzag stitch. This way it doesn't fray all over. Now, to make this part easier to attach the sleeves, take your tube that you tied and mark off both ends. You're going to mark the end that you sewed together and then go directly across from that, mark the end right across from it, then mark the center of each side. And now you're going to take right sides and put right sides together with the sweatshirt. And now see where you sewed the tube? You're going to attach that seam to the underneath seam, and this is the best way to have control of this. Pin it. Then you're going to find the complete opposite side of that tube, and you're going to pin it to the exact opposite side of the sleeve where the seam is, opposite of the seam, both sides. And you're going to pin that. Then after you get that pinned in place, you're going to find the center of the sleeve. I already marked the center of the sleeve. And you're going to find the center of that tube that you created. I marked that as well. You're going to meet the pins together. See, I'm going to do it right here. Meet the pins together. That's the center. You're going to do that on the opposite side as well. Then once you have those 4 sides pinned together, see, here you go, I marked them. There they are, the center of each side. Bring the pins together, pull one pin out, pin it. Now you're going to do the same thing in between each pin. There is a center on the sweatshirt, and there is a center on the tube that is between all the pins. If you keep doing that, you'll have even gathers. It makes it so much easier, especially since there's a lot of fabric here with the cotton bed sheet. And you want to make sure, I mean, it never has to be perfect when you're doing these gathers, but if you have it really off, the sleeve will hang funny. After you have it all pinned, this is what it should look like, and it makes it so much easier to sew the gathering. So I brought it to my machine, I sewed it on, and this is what it looks like. Now I have to do the lace trim on the sleeve. Now I'm measuring the bottom of the sleeve, and I am taking that measurement and I am subtracting 6 inches because I want the band on the sleeve to be smaller so that we have that poofy sleeve look. Then I took the leftover band that I made earlier for the bottom of the top. I had a lot of it, and I'm just cutting it to the right size, and I am going to sew right sides together, if you can tell. I mean, the both sides look the same. And now I'm going to fold it, sew it, make another tube, and then that tube I'm going to sew to the bottom of the sleeve so that it has to pull in all that gathered cotton fabric, and it's going to give a really cute puffy sleeve. So I'm doing the same thing to the bottom of the sleeve that I did to the top of the sleeve, and I'm marking with a pin the two ends and the centers, and I would really recommend doing it for this part because it's a little harder than it is the top. You have a little more room to work with. With the bottom of the sleeve, it's tighter and harder to do, so I definitely recommend doing this technique.
I was born and then orphaned by parents of sin. And the preacher
I am pulling it over now, right sides together, finding those pins and pinning it. And then I'm going to bring it over to the machine and sew it.
now I'm leaving my chains all behind. So they called up the neighbors to tell them the news. A young baby child that the world cannot abuse. I cried and I cried when they called it a ruse. Now I'm leaving my chains all behind.
Before I finish up this DIY, please like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel if you want to keep watching these. And as I always ask, is this something you would wear? Okay, back to the end of the video.
Living will treat you like hell, so I'm leaving my chains.
I finished the pinning on both sleeves, and I'm going to bring it over to the sewing machine, and then I'm going to show you the final results.
Leaving you from my day. The minute they found out young Jacob was gay, they stoned him with words and they
And now for the final results.
leaving our chains all behind.
Thanks for watching.